Welcome to our video. In this video you will hear our group I, speaking. We are Jaimy van Oijen, Joy Henricussen, Pieter-Bas timmerhuis and Suzanne van Heijden. For our integrated project, we've chosen to match theory into practice within the fish specialist company of Pieter Timmers. The fish store has its roots way back in time. It all started by Pieter's grandfather called Piet. His grandfather starting by selling fish door to door. 2 years later, he set up a fish store in Reuzel and in the Bobbejaanland in Belgium. Piet did this until about 1974, when Peter, Pieter's father, took over the shop. Peter entered the markets and soon he also started selling fish at several fairgrounds. Peter started helping out at an early age and liked to join his father to the markets. His first jobs were doing the big fish dishes and cleaning the market cars. Soon he also learned filleting the herring and he went together with his mom to the fish car in Reuzel to help working there. In this way he started to learn the basics within a fish shop. After he had finished his school, he started working full-time in the shop of his parents. Meanwhile, a general partnership was founded. After he has worked with his parents in a general partnership for 3 years, it was time to stand on his own. In October 2009, Pieter Timmers continued working independently in the fish specialist P. Timmers in the Vershof in Bladel. After a few years of gaining experience, he decided to open a second store in the Vershof in Veldhoven in October 2015. Pieter's business exists out of 14 employees and himself as a manager. Things run very well and he hopes to open a third shop someday. To create this project, we've used 5 different tools which we learned in our investigative ability lessons. We started by using the brainstorming tool. The first thing we did was discussing which company we should choose for this project. After we had chosen the fish specialist company, we brainstormed about how we should get the information needed. The second tool we used was desk research. We used this tool to find the general information about the company. We also used the tools questionnaires and interviews. We created 1 questionnaire and 2 interviews. The questionnaire has been filled in by all 14 employees. One of the interviews has been answered by 4 random sampled employees, and the other interview has been answered by the manager of the company. The last tool we used was field research. We observed the working employees for about 1 hour to get some information about what's going on in the working field. In this project, we have used inductive and deductive research as well. Because I, Susan, have worked in this shop, we could already create some theories and hypotheses. After making them, we tested them by observation and the questionnaire. Here we used a top-down approach. But we did inductive research as well. We did this by creating the interviews to find rich data. In this way we worked bottom-up, whereby we tried to reach more qualitative information. By using the questionnaire and interviews, we found a lot of information about the company regarding the organizational behavior course. We also found some information by using the we perspective. I, Susan, have worked in this company, which means that I could try to put myself in the shoes of the person who is living in. But we also used the they perspective. We kept distance and looked at this as if we were a neutral observer. We did this by using the field research tool. According to the questionnaires, all employees are satisfied about the atmosphere in the company. 13 of the employees even almost like it to go to work and are all satisfied about the working time. Their motivation to go to work is mainly based on the nice colleagues and the work itself. Just as in Taylorism, the pace of work is set by the workers itself. We find this out by observing the employees while working. There are no machines to set the pace of work. But contrary to Taylorism, there is not really a division of labor. All employees are doing the same tasks. They can all prepare food, they all help customers and they all fry fish. One of the interview questions was, do you think your boss knows what he's doing? Do you actually see him as a real leader? All 4 answered that they see Peter as a boss and that he knows what he's doing, which leads to Max Weber's theory of authority, legitimate. In the interview for the employees, we also asked if they see Peter as the only manager who everybody needs to follow, or if they also see more of the colleagues as managers. They all 4 answered that they see Kim, who is Peter's sister, is also a manager. Even though everybody follows her as well, Kim still needs to listen to Peter as the end boss. So the span of control for Peter is 14 and the span of control for Kim is 13. The span of control is wider because there are more similarity of tasks. As we have seen by observation, everybody does the same tasks, so there's not really a division between the employees. The manager does not have to follow the employees up all the time as well. And as they answered in the interview, everybody is equally responsible. Because it is a small business, lower interaction is needed between the people, which also leads to a wider span of control. To find out which leadership style Peter uses according to the employees, we asked the 4 random sampled employees in the interview what they think about it. According to them, it's a collective exercise of leadership behavior, mostly informal, spontaneous, collaborative, and relational. This means that Peter uses a distributed, also called shared, leadership style. By asking the manager how he hires his employees, we found out that his assumption to hire people is based on a description manner. That is because he does not look into CVs or anything. He only hires new people who are known by the existing employees, so by personal connections. He does not really look at their skills. According to the manager, every employee needs to be a woman and needs to have a nice appearance. This is very important for him. This also means that Peter is very relationship oriented. He wants relationships to be established before conducting business. According to the questionnaire, there is no inequality in the company. Every employee has the same rights and is at the same level in the company. This means that the company has a very low power distance hierarchy. And as Peter also described in the interview, good communication is very important for him. He is often present in the working field, but if he isn't and if one of the employees has a question, you can always call him. As described in low power distance and as described by Peter, superiors should be accessible. The importance of equality in a company is not only an aspect of low power distance, but it also means that the relationships with his employees are very universalism. Rules should apply to anybody. Besides the fact that every employee is equal, every employee is also well motivated. As the manager said in the interview, the employees are most of the times very motivated and work very hard. Of course, an employee may have a bad day once in a while, or needs to be motivated a little bit, but they are most of the time self-directed and self-controlled. They all have a lot of responsibility and they are all able to handle their own tasks. According to those aspects, the company uses a theory Y leadership.
Ethics. To find out how sustainable the company is, we use the field research tool of investigative abilities called observation, and we interviewed the manager. We found out that the company is not really thinking and acting towards sustainability, which is really a pity. For example, they don't recycle their plastic waste, which is bad because when they should recycle plastic waste, then they help to reuse plastic. If they should implement different trash bins, they can keep all the different waste separate and help to make sure that there is less waste as possible and that the products they can use again get a new life. They also use a lot of plastic to cover their products. Most of the products are covered with plastic layers to protect the products from drying out. But every time a customer wants to buy a product, the plastic layer will be taken off and thrown away. If they want to become more sustainable, they should use hard plastic covers so they could use them more than once, and this will also reduce the waste. Moreover, to keep the products fresh and protect the employees from getting their hands dirty, they work with blue plastic gloves. Every time the gloves are too dirty or when the employee needs to go to the bathroom or have a break, they throw them away and put on new ones afterwards. In this way, they consume a lot of plastic gloves, which is bad because they create more waste and they do not separate it, so it's bad for the nature. A better way to work proper to protect the products from bacteria and to protect the employees from getting their hands dirty, they could buy gloves which they could use more than once. There are gloves that are washable, and if they give every employee their own pair of gloves, the health of the employees and the consumer will not be in danger. The company also wastes a lot of water by melting the products which come out of the freezer. To melt the products, they put them in a bucket and let the water stream it until they are melted. But this is of course not sustainable. It is better to put the frozen products in the fridge the night before so they have time enough to melt. But of course you do not always know how much you need, so this is always easy to know in advantage. Unfortunately, they do not much towards sustainability, as you may have noticed right now. However, there are some things they pay attention on. The oil they use to fry their fish is helping towards sustainability. After the oil is used, they collect it in bins and send it towards a company who will roast it to create makeup products. Even though they do not recycle their plastic waste, they do recycle their paper use. Moreover, a half a year ago, the company still gave plastic bags together with the products to the employees. Nowadays, they don't use them anymore. They only use paper bags to put the products in. This is of course still not very sustainable because trees have been cut for all of the paper used. However, they did think about a more sustainable solution to replace the plastic bags for paper bags. And when they do separate the paper waste, it's better for the environment. The shop in Veldhoven is closed at Sundays, so at Saturday evening the employees clean the showcases and take all the products out of the showcases and put them all together in another big fridge. In this way, the cooling of the showcase can be turned off, which saves energy. The fresh fish specialist is part of the Vershof. Within the Vershof there is a baker, butcher, greengrocer and the fish specialist. Because of this, they buy products from each other and this makes it more sustainable to purchase. The different companies are independent, but they work together when it's necessary and when it's beneficial for both companies. Some fish sorts are so-called animal species threatened with extinction. This is a big problem in the world nowadays. There are made some worldwide agreements which makes it impossible to order these sorts of fishes. This is very important because when these agreements were not there, it would be very unhealthy for the environment and for the fish to buy a lot of these species. Now, how do we see law back in practice? By using interview technique learned from investigative abilities, we could also design a clear overview of the information needed for comparing how theory comes back into practice for the course of law. During this interview, we have used a lot of open questions which gave a better information for our research. We have analyzed the information connected to law and made an overview about how we can compare the theory into practice. Firstly, during the interview, Peter told us that the fish store was a sole trader. Therefore, Peter walks out with all the profit, but on the other hand, he will be held liable for with his own equity when the fish store cannot pay for their own costs anymore. In other words, when he goes bankrupt. Within the fish store, Peter is liable. And within the Vershof, where the fish store is located in, all the stores have made agreements about the costs of the insurances. The reason they do this is because they share the same risk of damaging. For example, when there is a construction break in another store, the risk for the fish store of collapsing is also increased. Therefore, one insurance with divided cost over several stores. There are also some insurances which only apply within the fish store. Is Peter liable for the damage made by employees and will this be paid by the insurance? Yes, Peter is liable for the damage made by the employee, but only if the employee did not act with intent or deliberate recklessness. Peter can choose to pay for the damage himself or report this to the insurance. If Peter decides to report the damage to the insurance, he has to pay an amount of own risk, and this will also increase his cost for the insurance. In the interview, Peter told us that most of the time he chooses to pay for the damage because this is financially better. In the interview, we also talked about what will happen if someone gets injured during work. Peter told us that he is insured for this. In case an employee falls off the stairs and cannot work for a period, the insurance will pay the amount of money the employee would have earned net. Peter will have to pay the difference with the net and gross salary. This all, of course, is for employees with a contract. Within the fish store, there are two types of contract, fixed and permanent contracts. Peter told us that in the interview that all the midweek employees have a permanent contract. This means that they have a contract for an undetermined period of time. Employees who work at the fish store for less than 2 years have a fixed contract. This means for a determined period of time. Peter told us that he does this because after 2 years he can decide if they want to keep the employee or get rid of it. When he decides to keep the employee after 2 years, they will get a permanent contract. Both of these contracts are agreements with fixed salary. Personnel working on Saturdays have 0 hours contracts. This means getting paid by the hours worked. According to the interview, Peter never calls off employees because he says there are always things to do at the fish store. We also asked Peter if an employee is getting paid when he or she is traveling to work or when he or she is delivering something in name of the fish store. Peter informed us that the time spent traveling to work will be seen as commuting time, and the time delivering products to places will be recognized as working time. During the interview, we also asked Peter if he has some author rights on his store name or logo. He told us that he does not have this, and he thinks that he doesn't need it. We answered that in practice, someone could come and copy his logo and name of the fish store. It's not permitted to have an author right on this, but sometimes it's smart to protect our ideas. Peter said that he's not afraid for this because it's just a small fish store with a low risk for this. He will start thinking about this when the fish store will keep growing nationally. And lastly, we asked some questions about outsourcing within the fish store. Peter does make use of outsourcing at, for example, cleaning and electronics. The cleaning team he contracted cleans the floor once a week and the windows once a month. He also told us that he contracted another company to keep track of the electricity within the store. He hired both companies because it's impossible to do this by himself.
The fish branch is changing, especially the last couple of years. People are becoming more aware of the healthy benefits that eating fish offers. This results in a growing demand for fish foods and a bigger revenue for fish stores. However, because of the popularity of fish, more stores are opening and supermarkets like Albert Heijn are paying more attention to the fish products. This means more competition for the fish stores. So the increase of the popularity of fish foods does not necessarily have to mean this will have a good effect on the fish stores. Big supermarkets are offering good quality fish for a lower price, and it will be hard for the fish stores to compete to this. Another problem for the fish stores is the inflation. Due to inflation, the wages of the employees are raising every year. This means less profit every year. For a small fish store, it's hard to raise the prices to those levels, mainly because of the rising competition of the supermarkets. However, as Peter described in his interview, he will actually raise some of the prices as he faces this problem. He will do this to prevent it from being expense of the profit. He explains he should actually raise all the prices, but this is not possible. So inflation will always be a little expense of the profit.
But now is the question, how do we see the link between the different courses? During this project we have found a lot of information by use of all the different investigative ability tools which we use to create some connections between all the courses. In our opinion, and from all the things we learned from Peter and his employees, organizational behavior is a center of connecting all the courses together. As it described in the organizational behavior part, Peter is at the top of the hierarchy overview and everybody sees him as a distributional leader. This also proves that what is described in the law part, that he will be held liable if something happens to the employees or to the company. As described in the questionnaires as well, the atmosphere in the company is very good, which is also very important for the employees. As Peter said in the interview, there are some official rules written down where everybody needs to stick to. Those are the rules which are written down in the employee contracts. Those include rules as the amount of salary, the number of working hours, job position, and place of work. Those rules are set by Peter from his own leadership perspective. But because they all trust each other and they are all equal, it is according to Peter not necessary to make their further official rules. However, there are of course some general rules which are not written down, but which keep the norms for how to behave and how to act towards each other in mind. They make those agreements that work in a verbal way. Examples of those general rules are greeting each other when entering the store, asking if you can help someone if you are less busy, and for example offering someone else a drink as well as you are making tea. So they do keep the norms and values of the employees in mind, which is possible because of the trustworthiness in the company. This links to the course ethics. All those unofficial rules also means that they don't really have an official collective agreement, which therefore connects to the law part.
Besides law, ethics and organizational behavior, we think that economics also plays a big role in this small market size company. For example, when the purchase price increases, it is not possible for such a small company to increase all his products' prices. He needs to come with another solution to prevent its profit decreasing a lot. As a result, it can have a negative impact on the working hours or the salary of the employees. Moreover, in bad economic times, Peter will have to think twice before he let his employees eat and drink whatever they want. Therefore, employees might feel less comfortable doing work, which decreases the productivity and the good atmosphere. In worst case, Peter might have to change his leadership style because the occasions have changed. This all connects to the norms and rules set in the organization and therefore connects to the law, ethics and OB courses.
After we have told you all this information about the fish company, we hope that we have given you a good overview of how theory matches with practice and how the four subjects are interrelated.